The military, the Nez Perce War. As a band of Nez Perce Indians outfought and outmaneuvered the U.S. cavalry in the fall of 1877, newspapers picked up on the drama. Some headlines read, "Comic Opera, Bungling of Pursuer, Salutes to the Most Remarkable Enemy, and the Nez Perce Splendid Military Intellect." This did not sit well with General Oliver O. Howard, who was leading the campaign, nor his superiors. The majority of the public sentiment was blatantly against the army in this David and Goliath war, which had been costly in lives, funding, and public acceptance. The 7th Cavalry had been all but wiped out with Colonel Custer a year earlier in the Battle of the Little Bighorn, and the unit was anxious for vindication. Colonel Samuel D. Sturgis, leading the 7th, had also lost a son, Lieutenant Jack Sturgis, in that battle. General Howard was also without a single successful engagement to this point. The campaign became a personal crusade for the military officers. But at last, in the Army's estimation, the campaign was coming to an end. The military strategist laid a broad net around Yellowstone, and all exits from the park were blocked with more than 20 companies in place. This would prevent any escape for the Nez Perce and put a quick end to this embarrassing conflict. The Nez Perce War. September 9, 1877, the Nez Perce knew that General Howard was at least a day behind them, and Colonel Sturgis had moved his forces to the Stinking Water Shoshone River. The Nez Perce, led by Lean Elk and Joseph, sensed an opportunity to escape. In an opening about 2 miles southeast of here, they milled their horses around in every direction to leave a confusion of tracks. They then backtracked north along a steep ridge and down a rough canyon until they reached the Clark's Fork of the Yellowstone River. The ploy worked. When General Howard arrived, his scouts were confused about which way the main body of the Nez Perce had gone. The Nez Perce had accomplished the unbelievable.
Sun is going down.
Here, keep recording. One last mountain, the Nez Perce War. The ridge you are standing on was the last significant barrier for more than 600 Nez Perce Indians and their 2,000 horses as they fled the pursuing U.S. cavalry. After the Battle of the Big Hole a month earlier, they knew the Army did not intend to leave any survivors, and this became a fight for their lives. Now on the run for more than 60 days, they had hoped that by crossing this pass and reaching the plains they could join their old allies, the Crows, or hasten on to join Sitting Bull in Canada. They began climbing to this point from the valley below. By this time all were exhausted and heartbroken from the long journey and aiding their sick and wounded. But they also knew that winter was closing in. If they could make it over this mountain fast enough, they just might escape the army and regain their freedom. Accounts tell us that the Nez Perce left a wounded warrior on this mountain. He was discovered and killed by Army scouts. Thus, this site became known as the Dead Indian Pass. This is part of the Shoshone National Forest. Sugarloaf Mountain off to the right is 8,700 feet. Beartooth Mountain, Russell Creek drainage. White Mountain off to the left, 8,772 feet. Windy Mountain in the distance is 10,262 feet.